Welcome to Meet the Experts, the show that introduces you to today's best and brightest thought leaders sharing information to accelerate your success in business and life. Let's get today's show started.
Welcome to Meet the Experts, the show that introduces you to the thought leaders that can impact your business, brand, and bank account. I'm Corey Mosley, your host for today's show. An often overlooked area during the business growth process is IT, specifically protecting your business from cybersecurity threats and attacks. Partnering with a trusted cybersecurity advisor can make the difference in protecting your data, ensuring client trust, and avoiding the financial pitfalls often associated with cyber attacks. My guest today is Marcus Wells, cybersecurity expert and founder of WellSecured IT, a fast-growing cybersecurity consulting, strategy, and education firm. Marcus, welcome to Meet the Experts.
Thank you for having me.
Now, cybersecurity is literally in the news daily. So before we even get into what you do specifically in your services, I just want you to share with our viewers what is going on in the world of cybersecurity right now.
Yeah, I think you point out a very appropriate observation, right? The area of cybersecurity is white hot right now because a lot of organizations are really finding that there's a lot of room for growth, there's a lot of room for maturity, and the same way that organizations are seeing that there's opportunities, the people on the other side of that equation, the threat actors, are also seeing those opportunities. Unfortunately, for many of these organizations, the threat actors don't really have the most altruistic virtues in mind when it comes to identifying those areas for growth.
And I think, when I think about this marketplace, because we hear in the news, right, where everybody, probably read about the big MGM, that was all cybersecurity. We think about these attacks in terms of them locking your systems, wanting ransom, all of those things fall under that umbrella. But there are a lot of people also just getting scammed and businesses getting scammed on things that haven't even happened yet, right?
That's right. That's absolutely correct. And so a lot of what's happening within the market currently, at least through my observations, there's a kind of a psychology that goes along with these threat actors and how they approach their campaigns. And that's exactly what they're called, their campaigns. It's like you would have an advertising campaign. When you do that advertising campaign, you want to know what you're selling. You want to know who you're selling to. You want to understand your target audience and what's going to be the most attractive for them. A threat actor is really going to act in the same way. So in many ways, they have to be thinking multiple steps ahead of where the organizations or the industries they're trying to target are going to be in the next 3 to 6 months. And they're planning accordingly.
So, I get this visual of maybe it's a virtual boardroom, but you're saying literally there are these bad actors that are kind of sitting around going, let's look at our 1-year plan and let's lay out who we want to target for the next 6 to 12 months, literally like we would be in a boardroom planning, our next campaign. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. These are legitimately structured criminal enterprises with the emphasis on enterprises, right? So the same thing you would see in a typical corporate structure where you have an organizational chart, you have your CEOs, your executives, your vice presidents, and your individual contributors. Many of these ransomware groups, these threat actor groups, they're operating in a very similar format and framework.
Huh. Now, this makes me think, because there's a lot of emphasis on cybersecurity training, right? A lot of your universities, a lot of your companies are putting a lot of emphasis there. I'm curious, because the people who do the bad stuff also have training. Are they literally going to the same schools and they're just choosing the red pill instead of the blue pill? They're just going in different directions?
That is almost exactly what's happening. And so just to kind of give you an idea of kind of what the mindset is on some of these threat actors, they're of course going through the same educational pipelines. They're going through the same certification processes. They're going through the same boot camps. And the reason why that is so integral to the success of a threat actor is simply put because they need to understand their enemy. They need to understand the thought process of the individuals that are going to be part of these organizations that are acting as the agents to protect those enterprises. The only way that they can really be informed about the practices that those individuals are going to be engaged in is by also entrenching themselves in those same levels of knowledge.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of this back and forth that I think about, like checkmate kind of stuff that really doing that you're trying to protect from. What are some of the vulnerabilities right now that you see in the marketplace when it comes to business owners where they're vulnerable and they might not even realize it?
Yeah, this is a fantastic question. I'm so glad you asked, because many times there's a bit of a misconception in the spectrum of what we do as cybersecurity professionals at WellSecured IT. And so the largest vulnerabilities, and I'll just kind of take a step back here to kind of put some context behind it. Mm-hmm. There are two types of typical vulnerabilities. You have software and hardware-based, which is effectively technology-based vulnerabilities. And then you have everything else, which is non-technology-based vulnerabilities. The largest and most prolific vulnerabilities that I've seen in the last 15 to 20 years, including today, have been in the vulnerabilities relative to the people. It's the human behavior that comes along with operating within an organization. Typically, what we see is when there's an instance of an active threat or a successful, campaign that has been carried out against an organization. The way that this thing oftentimes plays out is by an individual within that organization unknowingly but willingly providing access into that organization in some way, shape, or form.
I think of this, and I know we're talking about it from a corporate perspective, but I think a lot of people from a consumer level, as you just opened the door on, I find a lot of these people, and tell me if I'm right or wrong here, will collect information in bits and bytes and then put the file together. I think about this in my personal life, some things with my mother where they've tried to be the victim of kind of fraud in that area, where over time they're collecting these bits and pieces to kind of put a file together to then take action. Is that kind of the way, one of the ways that kind of, people and businesses can get attacked?
That is exactly the way that this is happening. In my experience, most organizations that are being breached, those breaches don't necessarily start from a threat actor going after an organization's infrastructure and resources. They're targeting individuals that work at those organizations, and they may actually go after that individual's home-based network or their personal accounts. And given the number of prolific data breaches that have happened recently, where even recently many American Social Security numbers were breached as part of this massive data dump, right? That is very valuable information that is being bought and sold on a daily basis on the dark web, as an example.
This is very interesting because I think most business owners go, oh, I've got VPNs and I've got security walls and firewalls. This whole idea of the employee being targeted to then attack the business, I think is huge. Let's talk a little bit more specifically about why you founded the company and kind of, you're very big on tailoring solutions to the client. So tell us a little bit about specifically what you're doing with WellSecured IT and how you are helping to tailor those solutions to meet these needs.
Absolutely. And so, specifically at WellSecured IT, I saw a need, throughout the years of me working in the space of technology to really have a bit of a more of a focus, less so on the technology stack, so less so on the software and the hardware, because that does need attention. However, what I was noticing is that there's a huge oversight in terms of that human behavior. And given that so many of the threat actors' successful campaigns are happening through things like social engineering campaigns, and as you even mentioned, gathering that information that's publicly available through these illegitimate means and creating these profiles on individuals and then attacking them directly, I noticed that there was a gap in the market and what was being offered. And so as a result of that, what I do is I like to talk to the organizations that I deal with, that I partner with, and have a really good understanding of their business operations, right? Because there's one thing that I've learned over the years that has stuck with me, and there's no silver bullet. There's no one size fits all solution for anyone. And then when we talk about that solution needs to encompass three very important things, and I'm sure you're familiar with this framework as well: is people, process, and then technology, in that order.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Because we got to connect the dots in the ecosystem. Now, I from a financial standpoint, there's kind of two things I think there's the actual, what we hear in the news about the ransomware and having to pay. But there's also just simply when your operations are down or under attack, your business can't make money. How are your services helping them protect their both operational and financial disruption, downtimes, or preventing that?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you asked that question. So what you're referring to here is, in a scenario where there is a data breach or there is a ransomware attack, right? Someone has effectively hijacked the infrastructure of an organization. They're taking control of that data. And so what we do at WellSecured IT is we primarily focus on that identity and access management component, right? Which just simply put, is the process or the practice of identifying those critical accesses within the environment and the data that is relative to that access. So in protecting the crown jewels of a enterprise, which is the data, their intellectual property, those things that, if compromised, would lead to a ransomware attack or would lead to any other type of successful breach or leak of data information relative to their ability to operate that has a direct input on or impact on their financials. We're protecting that. We're providing advisement. We're showing these organizations, here's how you can put some controls in place, right? Here's how you can train your staff. Here's how you can inform the individuals, and here's how you can engage your employees to actually be aware of these things. So that way, yes, you're protecting your technology. You have the things you need in place to protect that technology. So your firewalls, your VPNs, your anti-malwares, and et cetera. But you're also protecting it from the people aspect and letting them know to be aware of, when you see suspicious emails and how to identify those things and what you should do in the event that you see something that's suspicious and how you should respond to that.
Who is the ideal client for WellSecured IT?
I would say anyone who is running a business. Any business that is operating today is an ideal client for WellSecured IT.
Okay.
We operate in a framework where it doesn't matter how small your business is or how large your business is. I've worked with huge multi-billion-dollar clients, global clients, and I've worked with very small businesses, even state agencies. So there's really no job too small or too large, as long as that focus is on understanding how to protect the business and understanding how to strengthen those protections around the most sensitive areas of the business.
And I think that just goes back, the point you're making goes back to reinforce the idea that it's not, now obviously you do government work. We won't let out any secrets here on the show today, but you run the gamut basically. I think it's important to realize that cybersecurity and protecting yourself is not just a Fortune 500 or Fortune 10 or major government thing. It is really anybody in business. Now, you have something called the WellSecured IT CyberSecurity Health Check. Before I let you go today, please tell us a little bit more about that.
That's a great question. Our CyberSecurity Health Check is a platform that we offer to help organizations understand the benefit of us coming in and doing an assessment and understanding how their business operates and really where there's opportunities and room for growth. As part of that health check, we provide educational services to their staff. We manage a training around the cybersecurity needs that organization may have. We will provide recommendations toward, how they can remediate some of the findings that are relative to either our assessment or some recent audits they may have had. So really, it's an all-inclusive package to help them understand where there are gaps in their security practices and, how we can actually come in and help protect them from the ramifications of those gaps.
And I think we both agree this is not something you want to be reactive about. This is something you want to be proactive about. So you don't want to have a problem and then, because it costs, triple if they get in trouble and they need you, right? Because we've all seen a great TV show where they're hit by cybersecurity and the experts got to fly in from somewhere to figure it all out, right? So most TV comes from real life. They pull those things, from the archive somewhere. So this health check is something that you want people to be proactive about and have an opportunity to reach out to you and connect so you guys can really do a top down, I guess, to talk about vulnerabilities and then create a plan to fix it.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. Fantastic. Any last words before I let you go? We're just about out of time. Marcus, anything that you want to share, in the cybersecurity world, anything you want to say to the viewers?
Yeah, so I would just say, first and foremost, thank you for having me on this program. Secondly, you can stay in contact with me. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can just find me by my company name, WellSecured IT, or by looking me up, Marcus Wells. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can also reach me at my website, wellsecuredit.com, or send me an email at marcus@wellsecuredit.com. And we are here and willing and able to help with any of your cybersecurity business needs.
Fantastic. You just did most of my job for me. So for those that missed it, I'm going to read it again in just a second. But Marcus Wells, you are a true expert, and thank you for joining the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For more information on WellSecured IT's cybersecurity health check and additional services, visit them online at wellsecuredit.com. This has been another episode of Meet the Experts, the show that introduces you to the experts that can help you build your business, your brand, and your bank account. I'm Corey Mosley, and I will see you next time.
Thanks for watching Meet the Experts, an exclusive interview series produced by Thought Leadership Studios.